From Mortal to Divine, a Cultivation Epic, Episode 6. Originally, I thought we could make scrambled eggs or steamed egg custard from these eggs. Are you done talking yet? In the gentle bend of the Yellow Mud River in the west of the village, Chen Xiaobian was holding an egg and muttering to himself. "You've cracked it, Dad. You're really wasteful. I told you to poke a small hole in each egg. Did you do it? This basket of eggs is a thank you gift from Old Fourth's family to us." However, Chen Lagu decided to use these eggs to deal with the female corpse in the river. "All right, pour all the eggs into the river. All right, since you're my dad." Chen Xiaobian had no choice but to follow his dad's orders, his face full of pain. He knew that although his father was poor, he was a methodical person. So he pushed the basket forward and sprinkled all the eggs into the river without leaving a single one. After those eggs were scattered into the river, they floated up and down a few times before sinking completely into the pitch-black river. Let those creatures at the river bottom help us stir it up, and the body will float up, saving us from going into the water. Oh, that's how it works. I feel much better now. It was only at this point that Chen Lagu explained the purpose behind what he had done. Upon hearing this, Xiaobian finally understood. It made sense not to have to go into the water on such a dark night. This made sense. "Dad, there's movement." After the eggs had sunk for a few minutes, bubbles suddenly surged from the surface of the river. Obviously, something big was struggling at the river. In a matter of moments, the entire gentle bend of the river's surface seemed to be boiling, water splashing, and it seemed like there were quite a few dark things swimming back and forth underwater. After a while, the river calmed down again, and indeed, a black shadow resembling a human body floated in the water. Strangely, the corpse couldn't float to the surface. It shouldn't be like this. Once the soul departs, a lifeless body should have no resentment left. So why is it so heavy? Take a closer look. This aspect somewhat exceeded Chen Lagu's expectations. According to common sense, a drowned corpse should float up after soaking in water for 2 or 3 days once the soul has left. "Dad, I can't see anything. I've looked carefully. There doesn't seem to be anything hooking onto it." Chen Xiaobian stared closely into the water, and he couldn't find anything that might be anchoring the body. How could it be that it just wouldn't float up? Indeed, there's nothing there. It's just floating. Could it be caught on a fishing line or something? Chen Xiaobian continued to observe the water attentively, thinking about it. However, he didn't notice that Chen Lagu had moved behind him. Unexpectedly, Chen Lagu immediately kicked him into the river. "Dad, you tricked me again." As Chen Xiaobian plunged into the water, he finally realized what was happening. His own father had tricked him once more. His father was making him go into the water to retrieve the body. "Aren't you afraid I'll drown? And then no one will be there to take care of you in your old age. Stop complaining and go get it." Chen Lagu knew that his son was always one to avoid difficulties. If he didn't force him into the water like this, he wouldn't go voluntarily. "No wonder you've never been able to find a wife. You treat your own son like this. Who would dare to marry you?" Although Chen Xiaobian had a belly full of complaints, he also knew that his father had this kind of personality. He certainly wouldn't go into the water voluntarily on such a late night. Chen Xiaobian had grown up by the river and was a good swimmer. With a few strokes, he swam to the side of the body. But he wasn't foolish. Instead of directly pulling the body, he swam around it several times, carefully observing. He saw that there was nothing hooked onto the female corpse around her, but it was strange that she was floating in the water without rising or sinking. The body had been soaking for a long time, and many parts were swollen. Moreover, soft tissues like the eyes and mouth had been eaten by fish and shrimp, leaving dark holes. Seeing that there was no danger, Chen Xiaobian finally swam to the side of the body, preparing to pull her ashore. As he got closer, the movement of the water caused the body to move as well. Plus, there was already a layer of corpse wax on the body, making it slippery and not easy to handle. Finally, Chen Xiaobian managed to swim under the body with great effort, preparing to pull her out of the water. But at this moment, a cold gaze came from the bottom of the water, making Chen Xiaobian shiver involuntarily. Using the corner of his eye, Chen Xiaobian looked down and saw a large black creature at the river bottom, staring at him with a pair of red eyes as big as bronze bells, filled with malice. Not daring to delay, Chen Xiaobian exerted force and pulled the female corpse to the water's surface, while he himself desperately gasped for air. Worried that the creature at the river bottom might catch up, Chen Xiaobian swam desperately towards the shore. Chen Xiaobian's explosive strength was still quite astonishing. In no time, he reached the riverbank, dragging the woman's arm to pull her ashore. Once on the shore, Chen Xiaobian was exhausted, and now it was already deep autumn. The icy river water had drained all the warmth from his body. "Come over here and warm up your clothes, Dad, you're such a trickster." By this time, Chen Lagu had already lit a bonfire on the bank and beckoned Chen Xiaobian to come over and warm up. "Stop complaining and have a few sips to warm up your body." Chen Lagu was also worried about his son getting frostbite, so he handed him a small pot of liquor and urged him to have a few sips to warm up his body. "Dad, there's a big creature at the river, staring at this corpse. Could it be the Dragon King wants to marry her?" Chen Lagu's liquor was homemade grain alcohol from the countryside. As soon as a couple of sips went down, Chen Xiaobian immediately felt like his throat and stomach were on fire. "What, that old thing is staring at it? What's the use of staring at this corpse?" Chen Lagu, upon hearing his son mention that a giant creature at the river was staring at the female corpse, was taken aback. He seemed to sense something. "Get lost, you brat. Dad, that girl's body has lost its shape after soaking for so long. She's not worth looking at anymore." He got up, walked over to the female corpse, and carefully examined it, while Chen Xiaobian took the opportunity to tease his father a bit, considering it payback for being pushed into the water. "Indeed, it's a real tragedy." Chen Lagu looked at it for a moment, then walked back, but his expression was somewhat dark and serious. It seemed like he had made a discovery. "One corpse, two lives. This girl, Dad, what's wrong?" "She's already pregnant," he explained, and Chen Xiaobian finally understood. The woman's belly wasn't swollen due to soaking. She was actually pregnant. Although the woman's soul had departed, the child was still inside her, which explained why she was floating in the water without rising or sinking. That creature in the river is interested in the pure yin soul of the child. Chen Lagu also began to understand why the long-absent creature in the river was fixated on this female corpse. Following Chen Lagu's gaze, Xiaobian also saw the creature submerged in the water. It had big red eyes that were fixed intently on the two of them. "Stop thinking about it. The child's soul doesn't belong to you. Focus on your cultivation and don't stray into the wrong path. It won't benefit you." Chen Lagu didn't care about this. He didn't even get up, just shouted towards the river. It's unclear whether Chen Lagu's words had an effect, but the creature in the river stared at the two for a while before slowly sinking. "Do you want to know, Dad? What exactly is that thing in the river?" Chen Xiaobian only saw the thing floating in the water with a large shadow, but he didn't know what it was. "Dad, not again. Don't you think a fox spirit doesn't match my stylish image?" Chen Xiaobian shook his head when he heard about it. He was curious about his father's explanation, but felt that, as a modern young man, he should adopt a more fashionable style. "These are old-timers who practice nearby. The old fox I called is acquainted with them. As long as you summon the fox spirit, you can ask anything you want." Chen Lagu lit a tobacco pipe, took a few puffs, and began to drop hints. He implied that if you wanted to know something, You should summon the fox spirit yourself. Forget it. Let's talk about it when you're ready. Anyway, Dad won't harm you. Chen Lagu didn't pressure him. And in his words, some things couldn't be rushed, and it all depended on the right timing. It's getting light. Let's go back and have the village chief call the police. Cover the body with a white cloth. What? Will it cost more? Dad, come on. The two of them could already see the light of day. So they strolled back to the village, intending to get someone to report to the police. A little after 9 in the morning, the usually tranquil riverside echoed with the sound of police sirens, alarming many residents living along the river. The city's police station arrived at the scene with a large group of people, taking photos and conducting inspections of the body. Because it was daytime and the corpse's condition was extremely gruesome, the flesh and skin had been nibbled by river fish and shrimp, leaving small holes all over. In many places, severe decomposition had set in. The appearance of the female corpse in the river quickly attracted nearby villagers who enjoyed gathering to watch. Master Chen, you're the one who retrieved the body. Right, it was my son. The once peaceful riverbank suddenly buzzed with activity. Solving the case is the police's job, isn't it? You should help with this case too. At this point, Chen Lagu and Xiaobian were talking with a middle-aged man sporting a big quiff, standing behind the crowd. I asked last night, but we need to start from the girl's identity. It's related to her mentor. I can't say too much, although he said he didn't want to get involved. Chen Lagu still shared some of the information he could divulge. Understood. The heavens, this girl looks like she's only 16 or 17, and making trouble with her must not be a good idea. The middle-aged man knew that he had received enough information to solve the case, so he didn't press for more details. Uncle, hello. This is your son, right? Oh my, he's so handsome. He'd probably turn a lot of young girls' heads when he goes to the city. Don't you set your sights on him. However, when he turned to look at Chen Xiaobian, he developed a strong interest. But Chen Xiaobian didn't have a favorable impression of the man in front of him. He seemed somewhat nonchalant and not very serious. Here, this is 500 yuan and my contact information. Consider it a meeting gift. You can look me up when you go to the city. However, that man unexpectedly pulled out 500 yuan from his pocket and handed it to Chen Xiaobian. Don't worry, this is payment for retrieving the body, and I can claim it later. After handing over the money, the man walked towards the riverbank. Perhaps he was afraid that the Chen father and son would overthink things, so he turned back and shouted, "You, if your older brother were half as steady, you wouldn't have turned out like this." Chen Lagu seemed to be quite familiar with this person and didn't hold back, chatting with him for a bit. Always with a serious face. Annoying. I love whoever I love. Pack it up, pack it up. But that man clearly didn't pay attention to these words. The man directed several police officers to load the body onto a vehicle, and they soon left the scene. The case was reportedly solved very quickly, and Chen Xiaobian only learned about the details from the discussions of the villagers. It turned out there was a relatively large village upstream of the river, and the female corpse was a female student attending a middle school in that village. Not long ago, the middle school had just transferred a new teacher, and these two individuals somehow got involved with each other, often meeting in the woods on the hillside. "Teacher, I haven't had my period in a long time." What? After several months had passed like this, one day, the girl told the teacher that her menstrual cycle had been missing for a long time. "If my parents find out about this, what should we do?" Don't worry, I'll figure something out." This scared the teacher, who probably hadn't intended for things to develop this way initially and hadn't thought of the right course of action. "I'll take you back to the city." "Really? That's great. Then no one will recognize you." He lured the girl to the riverside by saying he would take her to the city, using sweet words to make her lower her guard. Don't blame me. We can't let anyone find out about this, or my future will be ruined. He chose this location because it was relatively elevated with swift water flow. He also knew the girl couldn't swim. Teacher, with a heart hardened, that guy pushed the girl into the turbulent river. Help! Help me! He thought that once in the river, she might not be carried away too far, and with the fish and shrimp in the river picking at her, this incident would never be known. Unexpectedly, this incident was stumbled upon by the Chen father and son. They not only retrieved the body, but also helped solve the case. It's said that when that guy was caught, there were many people watching and cursing him. If it weren't for the police stopping them, he might have been beaten to death by the angry villagers. A teacher and role model for others had actually committed such a heinous act, and the villagers' anger erupted. Turning back to the Chen father and son, after resolving the matter of the female corpse, they finally remembered that they hadn't slept all night and decided to go home and rest. All right, stop daydreaming. In the future, don't associate too much with that guy surnamed Qin. After all, he's from the righteous path. I think he's not bad. At least he's not stingy. At this point, Chen Qiubian was quite pleased. Earning 500 yuan for their efforts wasn't a bad deal. While walking and chatting, the astute Chen Lagu noticed that someone seemed to be watching them from behind. Dad, someone's tailing us. I know who it is. Let's not bother for now. Let's go about our business. Actually, Chen Qiubian wasn't just an ordinary person either. He had some awareness, but seeing his dad hadn't said anything, he didn't dare to alert the person himself. Let me tell you, don't disregard my advice. That guy goes by the nickname Troublemaker Qin. He's a tricky character. Understood. Let's head home. I'm so tired, however. It seemed that the person had already set their sights on them and wouldn't easily give up.